Welcome to our deep dive into the brutal reality of medieval life, where no day was ever easy. From sleeping elbow to elbow with livestock and fleas, to subsisting on sour pottage and rock-hard bread, medieval peasants faced unimaginable hardships. Hygiene was non-existent medical care, primitive and social mobility out of reach. In this video, we'll explore why you definitely wouldn't last a day in the Middle Ages. If you enjoy uncovering historical truths and engaging storytelling, hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up and let us know in the comments which medieval fact really shocked you most today. Imagine your eyes fluttering open to the harsh clang of a church bell, in the distance your medieval alarm clock. It's the year 1325. And instead of cozy sheets, you find yourself lying on a half-rotted straw mattress stuffed with bugs and hay, the remnants of your barn floor 3 months ago. The air is frigid, seeping through gaps in the wooden walls and thatched roof, forcing you to shiver as you uncoil your stiff joints. Your spine cracks like an old barn door, and your knees protest with each movement, reminding you that at 22 years old, you're considered middle-aged by medieval standards. There's no mattress topper, no memory foam, just a wool blanket you haven't washed since last winter. Now weighed down by months of grime and the bodies of fleas and lice that treat you like their personal Airbnb. As you force yourself to sit up, the pungent blend of stale beer, human sweat goat, and something you pray isn't mold assaults your senses. Privacy is unheard of. Your entire family and perhaps a cousin who never left are piled around you in the same cramped hut. There are no separate rooms, no curtains, only communal everything. Your feet hit the floor, which could be either wet from last night's rain leaking through the roof or crusty with animal droppings. Either way, you're now part of the hut's ecosystem. As you stand, you realize the floor is carpeted with a mixture of hay fragments, animal dung, and discarded food scraps, all perfect breeding grounds for rats and more insects. No slippers here, you navigate barefoot, hoping to avoid splinters, sharp stones, or worse, a surprise encounter with a wandering pig or its excrement. Before you have a chance to stretch, nature calls, and you haven't yet survived medieval toileting. Your bathroom is a wooden bucket behind the house, already full from Uncle Wolfston's rough night after bad turnips. You hold your breath, do your business, and then shout Gardez-vous Old French for watch out below as you dump it into the street. Medieval streets double as open sewers, a river of human waste, animal droppings, and mystery liquids you'd rather not examine. If you're lucky enough to live near a public latrine, you share an outhouse shoulder to shoulder with strangers breathing in garbage-laced air for a few moments of relief. Shaking off the worst of that ordeal, you return to your hut to confront breakfast, assuming you survive the bucket. Your morning meal is a bowl of pottage, a thick, gloopy stew made of whatever grains, root vegetables, and beans you could scavenge, simmering in the same pot for days or even weeks. New ingredients are merely plopped on top of the old, so every spoonful is an ever-evolving experiment in disgust. Alongside, you negotiate with a hunk of bread so hard it could deflect arrows baked from coarse rye or barley flour, often stretched with sawdust, acorn meal, or even ground-up bark, because real wheat is a rich man's luxury. No coffee, no tea. Your drink of choice is small beer, a weak brew boiled during fermentation to kill parasites in water. Even children sip it at dawn because water means dysentery and death. At least beer won't kill you immediately. Meat and cheese are reserved for feast days or when your lord feels generous, so most peasants don't see them more than a few times a year. Spices like pepper or cinnamon are worth more than gold, so flavor for the average peasant comes down to salt onions and the faint hope of not chewing on a rat hair. Now, marginally fed and borderline alive, you dress in your one and only outfit, a scratchy wool tunic or linen shift, worn until it disintegrates. Underwear is optional, and shoes, if you own them, are made of raw leather, offering about as much support as a banana peel. Most peasants go barefoot, trudging through mud dung and disease-laced puddles. Your clothes are stiff, stained, and reeking of compost, having never seen soap or a washing board. Fleas, lice, and bedbugs take full advantage, burrowing into the seams and crawling across your skin like living needles. You're constantly scratching, yet there's no relief. Dermatology is centuries away. By the time you step out into the sun, you're already exhausted, cold, hungry, itchy, and probably a little depressed. And this is just the first hour of your day. As our introduction hinted, surviving a single sunrise to sunset cycle in the Middle Ages is an achievement in itself, and you haven't even begun your real work. Building on the brutal morning you endured in point 1, waking cold, hungry, and crawling with vermin, the next trial is medieval hygiene. In a world without running water, indoor plumbing, or sewage systems, staying clean was a constant battle against both filth and fatal disease. From the moment you wake, the absence of private facilities and reliable water sources transforms every attempt at cleanliness into a hazardous ordeal. First comes the chamber pot, your only in-house toilet. You squat over a crude wooden bucket beneath your straw mattress, surrounded by family members who share your cramped space. When the pot fills, you carefully carry it outside, often in the pitch dark, and hurl its contents into the street below, shouting "Gardyloo" to warn passers-by of the human waste descending upon them. Any misstep risks spills that attract rats, spread disease, and foul the air. Alternatively, you might trudge to a communal outhouse, a rickety wooden shack, serving dozens of households, where the stench of excrement and unwashed bodies assaults your senses. Water itself is a scarce and dangerous commodity. You fetch buckets from a village, well hoping the water isn't contaminated by upstream latrine runoff or animal carcasses. Yet most springs and streams lie open to animal and human waste alike, making untreated water a vector for dysentery and cholera. As a result, you drink small beer, a weak brew boiled during fermentation to kill pathogens. Even children sip this morning drink, since water would kill them far more quickly than beer. But beer offers little in the way of nutrition or hydration, leaving you parched and vulnerable. Bathing is considered risky. Medieval folk believed hot water widened pores and allowed disease in, while cold water could shock the body into fatal chills. Thus, most peasants bathe only once or twice a year, often before major religious festivals, if at all. Communal baths, when they exist, consist of a single wooden tub heated over a hearth. Families pass the same water from oldest to youngest, so by the time you submerge yourself, the water is gray, foul, and full of floating debris. Soap made from animal fat and lye is scarce and harsh, causing skin irritation. Many opt instead for abrasive scrubbing with sand or wood ash, which leaves raw, chafed skin. After your fleeting bath, you wrap yourself in the one woolen tunic you own. This garment, worn day after day, traps sweat grime and the faint acidity of fermenting beer. It has never felt soft, and it never smells fresh. To knock off some of the dust and lice, you beat your tunic against a bush or fence post. Yet no amount of beating can remove all the insects that burrow into its fibers. Throughout the day, fleas, lice, and bedbugs puncture your skin, itching incessantly, and leaving sores that invite further infection. Oral hygiene is virtually non-existent. Without toothbrushes or toothpaste, you rely on chewing twigs, rosemary sprigs, or mint leaves to freshen your breath. Toothpicks, often carved from bone or wood, are shared among family members, creating a communal risk of transmitting infections. Tooth decay and gum disease are universal. Children lose their baby teeth early, and adults often suffer rotten stumps. When a toothache becomes unbearable, You might turn to a barber surgeon who knocks out the offending tooth with iron forceps and no anesthetic, just a slug of ale and a prayer. Nail care is equally primitive. Fingernails and toenails harbor dirt pathogens and maggots. Some villagers file them down with broken pottery shards. Most simply let them grow until they break or become ingrown, causing painful infections. With no antiseptics or antibiotics, a minor infection can escalate into gangrene, requiring amputation or resulting in death. And yet, despite the constant risk, there is no medical knowledge or infrastructure to address these problems on a village scale. Cultural and religious beliefs reinforce these unhygienic practices. Cleanliness beyond basic washing can be viewed as vanity, a sin against humility. Monasteries may boast elaborate baths, but lay people are prohibited from using them. Public bathhouses in towns where they survive are often shut down due to fears of moral corruption and the rapid spread of disease. As a peasant, you accept that filth and disease are your lot in life, believing that too much attention to personal grooming might draw the ire of both church and community. By the time you finish your minimal hygiene ritual, you're cold, exhausted, and still crawling with vermin. Every step toward cleanliness is reversed by the next chore or the next interaction with your filthy surroundings. As you step out into the daylight, the scent of manure, rotting food, and stale beer clings to you like a second skin. Yet you press on, for the fields await, and hygiene in medieval times is a luxury you cannot afford. In the next point, we'll delve into the hard labor of the fields, where your physical suffering only intensifies under sun and sky. Building on the crushing reality of medieval hygiene from point 2, where every attempt to wash or relieve yourself risked disease and humiliation, the next trial you face is sustenance. In a time before refrigeration, reliable grain storage, or diversified agriculture, simply eating enough to survive could feel like an act of bravery. Your day begins and ends at the hearth's hearthstone cauldron, where each spoonful of food is a roll of the dice between nourishment and illness. Your morning meal revolves around pottage, a thick porridge-like stew simmered in the same iron pot for days on end. Villagers throw in whatever they have: barley peas, beans, turnips, or leeks, and let the concoction bubble until it resembles a gray paste more than food. With no precise measurements, the ratio of old to new ingredients fluctuates wildly, yielding flavors that range from bland mush to gritty sludge. Occasionally, you encounter half-rotted vegetables or hidden stones, relics of rushed harvests and careless threshing. Yet even this meager meal sustains you better than the risk of cooking meat, which spoils quickly without proper salting or smoking. Bread accompanies the pottage, though bread is a generous term. Bakers in market towns mix coarse rye or barley flour with fillers, acorn meal, ground tree bark, or even sawdust to stretch limited supplies. The resulting loaf is so dense it threatens dental enamel. You chip away at the crust with a cleaver or grind it between your teeth in hopes of finding a softer center. Mold patches and stray animal hairs sometimes slip in invisible until the moment of biting, turning each bite into a gamble. Wheat bread, pale and fluffy by comparison, is reserved for nobility and church festivals. Peasants seldom taste it outside rare celebrations. Liquid intake hinges on small beer, a weak ale brewed explicitly to make water potable. Village wells and streams teem with pathogens from upstream latrines and livestock pens, so water is more likely to kill you than thirst. Small beer contains barely enough alcohol to intoxicate an adult, but is boiled during fermentation, killing many microorganisms. At dawn, you cradle a chipped wooden mug and sip this sour brew, hoping its warmth wards off the chill creeping into your bones. Even children drink it with breakfast. Any alternative risks dysentery or worse. Despite its shortcomings, this thin beer is a lifeline in a world without clean water. Cheese and dairy products offer occasional variety, but only when luck and season align. Fresh milk spoils within hours in warm weather, so families boil it into simple curds or churn it into coarse butter, then wrap it in leaves or animal hides to mask any sour odor. Cheese salted heavily to preserve it is crumbly and sharp. You ration each small wedge mindful that your Lord claims the best wheels for his storerooms. Meat and eggs arrive only after a successful hunt, a feast for the Lord's table, or a seasonal offering to the church. For most peasants, pork fat or dried fish luxuries by necessity appear so infrequently, they become stories, not staples. Spices and seasonings are practically mythic. Pepper, cinnamon, and saffron traverse perilous trade routes from the east, but remain treasures of the wealthy. When traders spill a few peppercorns at market, villagers scramble to scoop them up, often using spices as currency rather than flavorings. Instead, you rely on foraged herbs, parsley from the hedgerow, wild garlic in the spring, or mustard seeds saved from last year's harvest. These simple greens lend fleeting brightness to a meal that otherwise tastes of dust and desperation. Chronic malnutrition shadows every household. Without access to diverse crops or protein sources, vitamin deficiencies and anemia are rampant. Scurvy, once thought a sailor's curse, preys on your gums and joints, causing bleeding and exhaustion. Rickets from insufficient calcium and vitamin D twists children's bones as they grow. When harvests fail or lords demand extra tithes, you scrape together half rations of pottage, stretching bark, or thistle roots to fill bellies. During famines, rumors of eating bark bread or boiling acorns become grim reality, a reminder that even the humblest shrub can be salvation. By mid-morning, the scant calories from breakfast have dwindled. You prop yourself up with the last crumbs of that rock-hard bread and steel yourself for the day's labor. Each bite was not just food, but a wager against weakness, disease, and hunger. In the next point, we'll follow you out into the unforgiving fields where the sun's heat and the soil's toil compound the hardships of medieval existence. Building on the relentless struggle to secure even the bare minimum of sustenance in point 3, your next ordeal in the medieval world revolves around the very garments you wear and the condition of your teeth. In an era before modern textiles, hygiene measures and dental care, clothing and oral health present yet another gauntlet of misery. Each layer you don in the morning and every clench of your jaw to chew pottage brings fresh discomfort and fresh peril. Your wardrobe consists of perhaps a single tunic and shift made from coarse wool or linen. These fabrics, woven by hand in small village workshops, lack any sense of softness. Wool fibers are thick, itchy, and prickly. Linen, though lighter, is stiff and rough against the skin. You wear the same garments day in and day out, seldom removing them for washing. Washing a wool tunic is risky. The fabric shrinks and hardens when scrubbed or boiled, so most peasants simply pick off the largest clumps of visible dirt and insects and leave it at that. Footwear offers little reprieve. If you own shoes at all, they are made from a single piece of rawhide shaped crudely to your feet. Soles are thin and inflexible, providing minimal cushioning or protection against sharp stones, broken pottery, and animal droppings strewn across muddy paths. In many villages, peasants go barefoot for months at a time, allowing their soles to toughen naturally. This hardening process offers some defense, but also leads to painful calluses and cracked skin that easily become infected in the absence of antiseptics. Underclothing is virtually non-existent. Most peasants forgo undergarments, believing that extra layers trap moisture and breed lice. Instead, a single shift serves both as under and outerwear. This tenuous approach to layering means you carry body heat, poorly shivering through cold mornings and sweating profusely in summer fields. Without additional garments, you cannot adjust to changing weather further, jeopardizing your health and labor efficiency. Your clothes never truly dry between wears. After laundering, if it occurs, the dampness clings to the heavy fabric, chilling you even on sunny days. Villagers sometimes drape tunics over fence posts or hedgerows to air out, but this offers only brief respite. Fleas, lice, and bedbugs burrow into the seams and fibers, feeding on your blood and causing relentless itching. Scratching becomes a full-time occupation, leading to open sores that attract flies and invite festering infections. Turning to oral health, medieval dentistry is nearly non-existent. You have no toothbrush, no paste, no floss, only rough twigs or scraps of cloth to rub at your teeth. Any attempt at cleaning the mouth relies on abrasive materials, sand-crushed shells, or lye soap, which damage enamel and irritate gums. Chewing on aromatic herbs, rosemary, mint, or fennel provides temporary relief from foul breath, but does nothing to halt the progression of decay. Sugar and refined foods are luxuries of the elite. Your diet of pottage, stale bread, and small beer leaves little residue conducive to cavities. Yet the occasional piece of dried fruit or honeyed treat consumed during festivals accelerates tooth rot. With no dentist in the village, toothaches become a source of constant agony. Painful abscesses swell the jaw, making even your meager diet excruciating to swallow. Untreated infections sometimes spread to the face or bloodstream, turning a simple cavity into a fatal condition. When a tooth finally becomes unbearable, you turn to the barber surgeon, a tradesperson equally adept at cutting hair and extracting teeth. The procedure is crude. You are seated on a stool while the barber applies no anesthetic beyond a swig of beer. Iron forceps clamp onto the tooth, and with a few wrenching twists, the offender is ripped free from its socket. Blood gushes. You bite on a ragged cloth to stem the flow. Recovery means enduring days of throbbing pain, difficulty eating, and the risk of dry socket or infection, which can prove deadly. Your facial appearance reflects these hardships. Missing teeth distort your smile, while gum disease and scurvy cause gums to recede and bleed. Loss of tooth structure makes pronunciation awkward, impacting your ability to speak and socialize. Social stigma attaches to visible decay and deformity. Peasants with advanced dental neglect are sometimes shunned or pitied by wealthier townsfolk, reinforcing the harsh class divide. By mid-afternoon, your shabby tunic clings to sweat and grime, and your mouth aches with every swallow. The clothes that should protect you have become instruments of discomfort, while your teeth betray every attempt to eat or speak. As you trudge back toward the hut, after a day's labor battered by sun, wind, and rain, the weight of these burdens presses on you relentlessly. In the next point, we will explore the grueling labor itself and how the physical demands of medieval work compound these daily miseries. Building on the misery of your daily dress and the agony of medieval dental care described in point 4, the true weight of your existence reveals itself when you step into the fields. In the rigidly stratified society of the Middle Ages, labor is not simply work. It is an unending sentence dictated by birthright, enforced by custom, and sanctioned by law. As a peasant, you belong to the lowest class serfs, bound to the land, answering not only to the seasons, but to a lord whose power is absolute. Your life's purpose is defined by tilling soil, harvesting crops, and performing backbreaking tasks from dawn until dusk without rest, without reward, and without escape. Before sunrise, you trudge from your hut, still wrapped in the scratchy wool tunic that clings to years of sweat, across muddy yards toward the open fields. You carry a crude wooden plow, its iron blade chipped and dull, pulled by oxen that crest with age. You guide the plow through heavy soil, straining every muscle in your back arms and shoulders. Each furrow demands relentless pressure. Every misstep can send the oxen veering off course, leading to punishment from the reeve, the Lord's overseer, who watches you with a whip in hand. This overseer enforces quotas that change with the whim of the Lord or the church, ensuring your labor never keeps pace with demand. The sun climbs higher, beating down on your head, through the gaping holes in your simple hood. It bakes the earth beneath your feet and browns the scant hair upon your scalp. You pause only to gulp more of that thin, small beer you carried from the hut, knowing water will kill you faster than thirst. Then shoulders aching like they might detach you. Resume work, hoeing, weeding, and sowing by hand. Sharp weeds slice your palms. Thorns from wild brambles snag your tunic. Yet if you dare pause for longer than a moment, you risk a crack from the overseer's stick and a fine levied against both your person and the few coins your family struggles to save. By midday, your body aches from repetitive motion. The constant stooping and lifting twists your spine. The sunburn on your neck blisters, and the coarse leather of your shoes if you have any cuts into your heels. There is no scheduled break, no guarantee of shade. The fields are communal property of the manor. If you stray to seek shade beneath a tree, you face accusations of laziness, a mark that can brand you as unwilling to serve and expose you to harsh fines. Instead, you crouch in the nearest shallow ditch, slicing a chunk of that impenetrable bread and scooping lukewarm pottage from a battered wooden bowl, all while rats and birds scavenge scraps at your feet. Labor extends beyond the fields. When harvest ends, you are pressed into other work, repairing the Lord's fences, tending his livestock, and maintaining roads. Come winter, you split wood for the manor's hearth and repair thatched roofs while your own dwelling leaks rain. Women and children are not exempt. They tramp to collect firewood, spin wool into thread, and tend vegetable gardens that rarely yield beyond enough for a small stew. In this society, every living soul counts as labor, and even the tiniest pair of hands is drafted into service. Your status as a serf is inescapable. You cannot marry, relocate, or change occupations without the Lord's explicit permission. Should you attempt to flee, you become a fugitive, hunted by men on horseback and betrayed by neighbors afraid of losing their own tenuous privileges. Your children born on the same plot of land inherit your servitude. As you watch them sprout from infancy to adolescence, you know they will toil beside you under the same yoke their lives mapped out before they can even speak. Punishments for infractions are swift and brutal. Stealing even a few carrots from the manor garden can earn you flogging or mutilation. Fines drain the little wealth you accumulate, often paid in food or labor that leaves your family starving. Justice is dispensed by the Lord's court, where bias is baked into every decree. Pleas for mercy fall on deaf ears, for the feudal order depends on maintaining strict hierarchy. The message is clear: your body is property of the land, your labor the lifeblood of the manor, and your suffering a small price for the comfort of those above you. As dusk approaches, you collapse onto the edge of a ditch, your back screaming with every breath. The fields stretch endlessly, a testament to unending toil. Yet even here there is no respite. You must return to the manor to shear sheep, milk cows, and repair barns, all tasks dictated by the agricultural calendar and the Lord's whims. Only when darkness fully blankets the sky does the day's labors conclude. You trudge home, legs stiff as planks, hoping the fleas and lice haven't claimed new territory during your absence. In the next point, we will explore the ever-present specter of disease and violence that permeates every corner of medieval peasant life, compounding the exhaustion born of ceaseless labor. Amidst sun-scorched fields and feudal bonds, survival is an achievement in itself and freedom a distant dream. Building on the backbreaking labor and rigid social constraints of Point 5, the final crucible of medieval peasant life comes in the form of disease, violence, and brutally short lifespans. No matter how diligently you worked the fields, or how carefully you scraped together a meal, unseen pathogens and ever-present brutality could and often would cut your life short. Medieval medicine was rooted in superstition as much as in observation. When illness struck, whether it was dysentery from tainted water, typhoid from rotten food, or a fever born of overcrowded living quarters, your treatments remained unchanged for centuries. Barber surgeons wielded leeches and lancets, practicing bloodletting under the theory that releasing bad humors could restore balance. Leeches were applied to skin sucking until they dropped off or were scraped away. When that failed, larger incisions were made to drain supposed toxins, often resulting in hemorrhage, infection, or both. Prayer and relics offered spiritual comfort, but without antibiotics or antiseptics, even minor wounds could fester and become mortal. Child mortality was especially harrowing. In your village, half of all children died before reaching their 5th birthday, felled by measles, smallpox, or the rampant diarrheal diseases that swept through close-quartered homes. You might cradle an infant one day and bury a toddler the next. Midwives had little more than herbal poultices and chants to offer. Any medicinal plants like yarrow for stopping bleeding or elderflower for fevers were gathered from hedgerows and boiled into bitter teas that children often refused to swallow. Each child who survived those dangerous first years was considered a small miracle, yet the grief of losing a newborn was so commonplace, it scarcely warranted a church funeral. For those who did reach adolescence, life remained precarious. Chronic malnutrition, parasitic infections, and relentless exposure to the elements stunted growth and sapped immunity. If you managed to see 40 in age, at which medieval souls were often deemed old, you were luckier than most. Yet even then, every cough could signify tuberculosis, and every bruise might hide an infection that no physician could cure. Violence, both legal and extrajudicial, compounded these threats. Feudal justice was brutal. If you were caught poaching game on the Lord's land, you risked mutilation, having an ear or finger chopped off as a warning to others. Theft of grain or animals invited public whipping or branding punishments intended to humiliate as much as to injure. Courts overseen by reeves and bailiffs offered no presumption of innocence. Guilt was assumed especially for those at the bottom rung of society. War and raiding parties added further peril. If your region lay near contested borders, armies might march through your fields, seizing livestock and burning homes for supplies. Soldiers often believed peasants to be little more than targets. Rape, pillage, and murder went unpunished when carried out under a noble's banner. Even during peacetime, bands of highwaymen lurked by forest roads, preying on solitary travelers and small trade convoys. With no formal policing, survivors learned to carry crude weapons, knives, or cudgels, but these offered scant protection. Religious violence also intersected peasant life. Heresy was a capital offense, and local informants could accuse neighbors of unorthodox beliefs to settle scores. Those convicted by ecclesiastical courts faced burning at the stake or drowning spectacles designed to terrify entire communities into obedience. For peasants who struggled just to meet daily obligations, adherence to every doctrine and ritual was not a matter of faith, but of survival. Natural disasters compounded the human threats. Crop failures led to famine, weakening bodies and making disease outbreaks even deadlier. A single bad harvest could devastate an entire manor, forcing families to eat bark acorns or even grind leather scraps into bread. Such desperation fueled outbreaks of theft and violence as starving peasants risked everything to feed their children. Lords sometimes responded with merciless crackdowns, burning hovels and evicting families rather than offering relief. The psychological toll of living under the specter of disease and violence cannot be overstated. Every cough in the night, every knock on the door, or every unfamiliar face in the village could herald disaster. Yet despite these hardships, peasant communities persisted. Mutual aid-sharing tools, labor, and meager rations offered the only real defense against overwhelming odds. Festivals tied to the agricultural calendar provided brief respites, moments of communal feasting and dancing that reminded everyone why survival mattered. Ultimately, the combination of primitive medicine, endemic violence, and extreme poverty made the average lifespan shockingly short. Death was as natural as birth, woven into every aspect of daily life. You labored, ate, slept, and woke each morning acutely aware that at any moment illness or a blow from a cruel overseer could end your story. And yet in the face of this relentless brutality, the human spirit endured, finding small joys in family faith and fleeting moments of beauty in a harsh world. It is this resilience that stands as both tribute and tragedy to life in the Middle Ages. As we've seen, from waking among fleas to unending backbreaking labor hunger and relentless disease, medieval peasant life was a daily battle for survival, and it's a wonder anyone made it through. If this deep dive into history surprised you, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Then let us know in the comments which hardship shocked you most. Living without hygiene, brutal field work, or rampant illness, your feedback helps shape our future content. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss our historical explorations. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.